It's Local Edition. Brad Pomerance here in Sacramento. We are joined by Senator George Runner. He is a member of the Board of Equalization. And sir, I have learned over the last year or so that we are facing a housing crisis.
Yeah.
And I don't mean homelessness.
Right.
We know that's a crisis. And I don't necessarily mean affordable housing. I mean an overall housing crisis when we think about market rate housing.
Well, again, it's just all supply and demand. So as a result of that, we have inflated. That's one of the issues that causes the higher rate. California has an average housing price right now of about $450,000, and I don't know about you, but especially my wife Sharon, she loves watching HGTV.
Same with my wife, and I watch it as well.
And I should say I do too.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me, they'd show you these homes, and and you look at this, and they say, and this is $275,000. You think $275,000, 3,000 square feet, a half acre, and it's just so unique for us in California because we're just not used to those kind of issues and prices. So it makes you scratch your head and say, why? What?
Well, we're learning why. I mean, like you said, we're about $450,000 as an average, which is 2.5 times greater than the national average. Mm-hmm. And apparently, we're just not building enough homes to keep up with the population. And in Los Angeles County, your original home, I mean, we're about 35,000 homes short every year for the last 3 decades.
Sure. So in essence, then you ask yourself, what does that do? Well, what that does is it creates any shortage, then makes prices go higher, and then it just falls down from there. It makes apartments more expensive. It makes any kind of housing, but it puts families together, multiple families in single houses. All those things are what change are the result of a shortage.
And what we now see is that what had been considered rural areas are now essentially suburban areas.
Yeah,
because I mean, think about the Antelope Valley. I mean,
well, and again, you have some folks that are open to that, and so you see whole areas that pop up that had small populations that now have large populations. But then you have other areas, and it's really interesting because it's not the issue of land use is not a conservative liberal discussion. You can drive here west of or east of Sacramento area here where we're at, and you can go into the foothills that are very conservative foothills, and they'll have right now. They just ran through an election. One of the primary election issues is don't let these people build their houses here.
Growth.
And so it's interesting in the sense that
and that generally is seen as more of a liberal position, a slow growth position.
Where it conflicts is the issue of property rights.
Right.
And normally the conservative position would be, hey, it's property rights. People should do what they want to, unless it has effect on what I want. And then all of a sudden, hey, I have an opinion about this.
Of course.
So again, and so you have a series of issues that makes it harder. Number one, and the reason what happens then in places like, well, in different places,
Yolo County,
wherever it is they end up putting more restrictions on, so that drives the price up. They put on more requirements. If you're going to do this, you need to make sure that you put in some extra money for the firehouse, for the park, for the schools, and all these things end up just piling on top of the cost of the house. And unfortunately, then what happens is you end up with a higher priced house on top of the shortage in the market.
And what that does is it drives people away from being acquirers, buyers of home, and then that becomes a catalyst for the need for more affordable housing in the truest sense, where the government gets involved in trying to create affordable housing units.
And you think about that, because then what does that do? The whole concept of affordable housing then is a couple things. Number one, it's either government subsidized, so because housing prices are going up, our taxes are going to make up the difference, or it goes to the builder, and the builder, we say, okay, builder, you're going to build some houses, but we need you to set aside a certain amount of these in order to make them affordable. When you set aside these houses, the builder makes up the price in the other houses.
Now, Governor Brown is looking at that very issue, and he has proposed, much to the chagrin of many in his own party, certain, I'll call it set-asides for builders if they are willing to look at higher density, if they're willing to look at low-income properties, but it would cut red tape.
Well,
for these builders, and then thereby limit local control in the way
and
you
that's
described.
exactly what happens. Remember, what happens right now is the issue of land use is a very strongly held value in local government. That's that's what they believe. Well, look, local government believes that one of the things that they must do, that they're elected to do, that their job is to protect the land use in their communities. And so when the state comes in on top of that and says, well, okay, but we're going to change the rules for you, and we're going to force these folks, we're going to force you to make these new rules if these people do these things. And all of a sudden now you're undermining the locals in regards to as they want to play in their communities.
But at the same time, one could argue that that is in line with more, let's call it conservative positions, because you are limiting red tape. CEQA, California Environmental Quality Act, is being dealt with in a way that's not as onerous for the builder. So again, like you said, these issues are not left-right.
It's really not. This is not a partisan liberal Democrat or liberal conservative discussion, because you have conflicts on all sides of this issue. And again, you have some very good areas that are very conservative where they just as soon not have anybody else move in. They got there first. I got mine. You go find another place.
I want to speak about the minimum wage, sir. As you know, there was a plan to put a minimum wage increase on the ballot statewide in November. Ultimately, a deal was reached in which the governor signed that set a $15 minimum wage. Of course, it's in tiers, and it goes up to 15 in 2022. There are some carve-outs for smaller businesses. There is an ability for the governor to block the increase if there's an economic downturn. What do you make of this deal, sir?
I get the idea that we're trying to figure out how to help people, with a wage, but fundamentally there's some issues that you got to get across. You got to get through. Number one, I've never believed that the minimum wage was supposed to be a wage to which you should raise a family on. Minimum wage, I've always believed, is this entry-level wage that you go in, you're going to school, you're unskilled, you're doing these things, and you're be able to make some money on the side. The problem is, as you drive up that minimum wage, the unskilled are the ones that get hurt the most. Because now all of a sudden, if I'm going to pay $15 an hour or $12 an hour, or whatever as it tiers up, why would I hire the younger unskilled person when I can get somebody who's probably a little more skilled, a little more experienced?
But if there's going to be a minimum wage increase, do you believe it's more beneficial to have that be statewide as opposed to by jurisdiction?
Well, actually, that's another problem, because the minimum wage in San Francisco, again, the cost of living in terms of being able to survive in San Francisco is a whole lot different than in Fresno.
And let's talk about that, because our friends in Oregon, and I wouldn't call Oregon a red state, they have set a minimum wage platform with tiered increases. So in urban areas, the minimum wage is a certain level. In suburban, it's a little less. And in rural, it's even less than that.
It's probably a smarter way to do it if you're going to do it, because what happens, again, where it affects you the most is in high unemployment areas, where rural areas. Because again, who you're going to hurt there the most are the unskilled individuals when you already have high unemployment rates.
Are you concerned that with this increase in minimum wage, our friends in Nevada, our friends in Arizona, they'll start trying to pluck businesses?
That's always an issue. I'm not sure how many businesses that are kind of on the minimum wage side are that transferable. Usually you think about, the fast foods, some of those kinds of folks.
Which brings up a very good point.
Right. So I'm not so concerned about them saying, well, I'm not going to open a McDonald's here. No, they're going to still open a McDonald's here. The problem is, how automated will that McDonald's be? Right. How many less jobs will there be in that McDonald's? I think that becomes the greater concern in regards to that adjustment that people are making.
Okay, his name is Senator George Runner. He is a member of the Board of Equalization in the state of California. My name is Brad Pomerance in Sacramento. This is Local Edition.